Hey guys, Jeremy Cole here. I make these videos to record my progress and my experience while on the drug Mounjaro, also known as Tirzepatide. If you're new here, do me a favor and subscribe to the channel. It helps a lot. And I hope you enjoyed the video. So we've been on Mounjaro for 4 weeks at this point, and this week we lost 1.8 kilograms, 1.9 cm in the waist, and 1.3 cm in the hips. And that brings our total weight loss to 9.25 kg, 7.6 cm in the waist, and 8.8 cm in the hips. So moving forward, we're probably going to be sticking to 2.5 milligrams of Mounjaro this week because the weight loss was still well above 1 kg. We actually did better than last week where we lost 1.6 kg, and we probably won't move up to 5 milligrams until the weight loss significantly decreases. This week, I wanted to share some information about how to diet while under Mounjaro. And the assumption is that Mounjaro reduces appetite pretty significantly. And it does this by, there's a variety of ways, but one of the ways that it does this is by slowing the emptying of your stomach, right? So before going into specifically what I do or how I plan my diet, there are a couple of guidelines that I wanted to share with you guys in general, because not everybody is the same. Not everybody has the same exercise workout program, and not everybody can stick to the same foods over a long period of time. Some of you guys might need more variety, and which is completely okay. And I think if I gave some general guidelines, general tips, it would probably be more helpful for more people. So I've split the guidelines up into do's and don'ts, and I'll probably start with the don'ts. The first thing is to try to avoid greasy or deep fried foods. So why is that? Because again, Mounjaro causes slower emptying of your stomach, right? So generally, greasy, oilier foods take longer to break down and process. So if it stays in the stomach for too long, it actually can cause worse side effects like nausea, like diarrhea, right? Because if you imagine food that is being broken down and it just stays in your stomach, it doesn't get passed through to the rest of your GI system, the effects could be pretty bad. The second one is to try to avoid alcohol. Alcohol can irritate the stomach lining, and then when you combine that with slower gastric emptying, it could lead to even more severe side effects. On top of that, there are certain alcohols that are high in carbohydrates like beer, or there are certain cocktails that are very sugary, and that actually can disrupt the effects of Mounjaro. And lastly, alcohol is also generally very dehydrating. And so if you are experiencing side effects like nausea or diarrhea, it just worsens the overall situation. My third don't is to try to avoid processed food. And the reason for this is because while under Mounjaro, generally you will eat less, right? Because you have a much lower appetite, much lower hunger. So processed food in general can be lower in nutrients and minerals than whole foods. And if you are already eating less and a portion of your diet is mostly processed food, it could lead to certain nutrient or mineral deficiencies. Processed foods may also contain substances that can irritate your stomach or your GI tract, and combined again with slower gastric emptying, it could amplify or make side effects even worse. Okay, my last don't is to try not to skip meals, right? So while being on Mounjaro, because generally you are fuller for longer, you can go quite long without eating. And even when you do eat, you could feel full very quickly, right? So if you have a meal plan, which I will talk about, later on, you should try to stick to it, because skipping meals, although you feel fine, it could lead to certain deficiencies in vitamins or nutrients. Skipping meals also could cause like a rebound effect, like you overeat later on when you're off your weight loss diet. The first tip I have for you guys is to track your calories in versus calories out. And you could say that this is probably the most important tip, because simply put, if you are consuming, if you're eating more calories than your body uses, you will gain weight. If you're eating fewer calories than your body uses, you will lose weight, right? So how do you calculate how many calories your body uses every day? I'm going to put up a formula on the screen, and you can just plug in your height and weight and your age and your gender, and you should get a number, and that should be a pretty good estimation as to your base metabolic rate. Of course, if you do have physical activities, if you exercise, whether it's cardio, whether it's you train with weights or you play certain sports, that will increase your daily calories that you use, right? As for how to calculate the amount of calories that you eat, there are certain apps out there. I think probably the most popular one is MyFitnessPal, where you can just put in whatever you're eating and it will break it all down for you into calories, as well as macronutrients like your protein, your fats, and things like that. You can even ask ChatGPT, or you can even Google certain foods, and it should give you a pretty good estimate of how many calories you are taking in. My second tip is meal count and frequency. So while being on Mounjaro, you can go very long, especially on your first maybe 3 to 4 days after getting your weekly dose of you're just fine not eating, like you're not hungry, right? But you probably should have a number of meals that you want to eat a day. I would suggest 3 to 4, and I would suggest them being evenly spaced out, roughly 5 to 6 hours apart. And the reason for this, especially if you do resistance train, is you want there to be a constant supply of protein in your bloodstream so that your muscles can recover better. So my next tip is to have a meal plan. Because if you are on Mounjaro, if you're gonna eat just based on how you feel, it's actually quite easy to go, half a day, 12 hours without feeling hungry, right? Like if you have a heavy breakfast, you could skip lunch, and even if you skip dinner, you'll be okay. But if you do that, there's a chance that you undereat, you don't get enough vitamins and minerals, and over the long run, it's actually not very good for you lah. My next tip is to stick to nutrient dense or whole foods. So this is pretty much the same point, but the opposite of trying to avoid processed food. Nutrient dense or whole foods generally have more nutrients, and because overall you're just eating less, if you stick to eating whole foods, there's a better chance that you get enough nutrients and minerals. My next tip is to try to prioritize protein, and this is even for those of you who are not resistance training and not planning to resistance train. So to prevent losing too much muscle, it's important to eat enough protein. For those of you who are not resistance training, you should get at least half a gram per pound of body weight, or 1 gram per kilogram of body weight per day. And for those of you who are resistance training, you should try to get 0.7 grams to 1 gram of protein per pound body weight, or 1.4 grams or 2 grams of protein per kilogram body weight. And my last tip is to try to stay hydrated. The most common side effects of Mounjaro are GI related, right? So things like nausea and diarrhea, which can dehydrate you quite badly to the point where you could run a fever. So it's very important to make sure you're getting enough water every day to make sure to prevent any of these things happening. Now, moving on to my own personal diet, I do want to try to make this as helpful to as many of you as possible. So I have a whole foods priority list when it comes to what I consider putting into my diet. At the top of the list is lean proteins. Next is fruits and vegetables, but for me personally, it's mostly vegetables. And then after that, it's just carbs and fats. For me, I feel like I'm somebody who doesn't have a problem with eating the same thing every day. I've been having pretty much the same meal for months and I'm fine. I don't feel a need for variety, or I don't feel bored, but I know that that's not everybody. So I'm going to put up a list of lean proteins on the screen, and you could just type into any AI or into Google a list of lean proteins good for a fat loss diet, and it will give you a pretty good list. And also, I do resistance train. So based on my current body weight, I would need 160 to 220 grams of protein per day, right? I have 4 meals a day. So my first meal would be at 6 or 7 in the morning when I wake up. My second meal would be roughly at 11 o'clock. My third meal would be at 3 to 4 in the afternoon. And then my last meal will usually be at 7 to 8 in the evening. So my first meal of the day is 2 servings of a protein shake. And that's about 50 grams of protein and 270 calories. For my second and third meal, I'm usually not at home. So I get these nut or like granola bars from the supermarket, and I bring them out with me. And each of these bars is 190 calories with 10 grams of protein. So for my second and my third meal, that's what I have. For my last meal, which is my biggest meal as well, I have 300 grams of chicken breast. That's about 70 grams of protein and 360 calories. I have one whole stalk of broccoli, which is roughly 50 calories and 4 grams of protein. And then I will have 1 to 1.5 servings of canned baked beans. And that's about 160 calories and about 9 grams of protein. At night, sometimes I do snack, and my current snack of choice is dried cuttlefish. So if I do snack at night, I have about 50 grams of cuttlefish, and that's about 38 grams of protein and 175 calories. That brings us to a total of 190 grams of protein and 1400 calories a day. Based on the equation to calculate your base metabolic rate, my base metabolic rate is roughly 2000 to 2100 calories a day, but that's not including my resistance training and all that. So I am at quite a decent caloric deficit every day, and also a pretty good level of protein every day. So that probably explains the bulk of the weight loss for the past 4 weeks. So next week, I will be talking to you guys about my workout routine, what I do, how many times I do it, and I will see you then. Thanks for watching. Bye.